This webinar is titled God's Providences in American History, The Death of Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, Part 2, and there's something more amazing that you need to hear that's beyond Part 1. Well, as we've already discussed, there were profound providences in their passing. They died on the same day, July 4th, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration, the hour of the reading. They were authors of the Declaration, the last two living founders, the only two signers to serve as president. Both had wanted to live to the 50th event. There's an astronomical event, and so forth. But if that were not enough, this providence gets further extended to beyond compare. You see, Jefferson and Adams were close colleagues and friends from 1775 to 1787. They met in 1775, they drafted the Declaration of Independence together in 1776, and they were close colleagues before and during the Revolutionary War. From 1789 to 1796, there was a split between them, however. They became divided in their views on the French Revolution during Washington's presidency. From 1796 to 1809, they became real adversaries during their two presidencies. Benjamin Rush, who was a friend of both of them, had a deep concern for both friends and the bitterness that existed between them. One night, several months after the end of Jefferson's presidency in 1809, he had a dream. On October 17, 1809, he wrote down an account of that dream and he sent it to John Adams. Here's an account of that dream. In his dream, he came upon his son Richard reading a book. "What book are you reading?" "A History of the United States," says his son, "and this page relates to your friend Mr. Adams." The page began, 1809. Among the most extraordinary events of this year was the renewal of the friendship and the communication between Mr. John Adams and Mr. Jefferson, the two ex-presidents of the United States. They met for the first time in Congress in 1775. Their principles of liberty, their ardent attachment to their country being exactly the same, they were strongly attracted to each other and became personal as well as political friends. A difference of opinion upon the objects and issue of the French Revolution separated them during the years in which the great event interested and divided the American people. The predominance of the party which favored the French cause threw Mr. Adams out of the chair, that is, the presidency of the United States, in the year 1800 and placed Mr. Jefferson there in his stead. Mr. Adams retired with resignation and dignity to his seat at Quincy, Massachusetts, where he spent the evening of his life in literary and philosophical pursuits, surrounded by an amiable family and a few old and affectionate friends. Thomas Jefferson resigned the chair, the presidency of the United States, in the year 1808. Sick of the cares and disgusted with the intrigues of public life, he retired to his seat at Monticello in Virginia, where he spent the remainder of his days in the cultivation of a large farm agreeable to the new system of husbandry. In the month of November 1809, Mr. Adams addressed a short letter to his friend Mr. Jefferson, in which he congratulated him upon his escape to the shades of retirement and domestic happiness, and concluded it with assurance of his regard and good wishes for his welfare. This letter did great honor to Mr. Adams. It discovered a magnanimity known only to great minds. Mr. Jefferson replied to this letter and reciprocated expressions of regard and esteem. These letters were followed by a correspondence of several years, in which they mutually reviewed the scenes of business in which they both had been engaged, and candidly acknowledged to each other all the errors of opinion and conduct into which they had fallen during the time they filled the same station in the service of their country. Many precious truths, the result of observation, experience, and profound reflection, it is said, are contained in these letters. It is to be hoped the world will be favored with the sight of them. These gentlemen sunk into the grave nearly at the same time, full of years and rich in the gratitude and praises of their country. End of dream and letter. Well, at the time of the letter, 1809, none of this dream that I just read was true. Adams and Jefferson were not in any communication with each other. Enter Benjamin Rush. Dr. Rush first sent a letter to Adams with an account of the dream. Then he sent a letter to Jefferson. Both men had opened hearts to what Dr. Rush communicated about his dream. Adams saw this dream in letters from God. He said this, "Your prophecy, my dear friend, has not become history as of yet. I have no resentment of animosity against the gentleman, Jefferson, and abhor the idea of blackening his character or transmitting him in odious colors to posterity. Jefferson first wrote to Adams, and Adams responded. Over the next 17 years, the dream proved to be prophetic. Jefferson and Adams renewed their friendship. They corresponded for several years, and the world has been able to read their letters, and they lived long lives, and they sank into the grave at nearly the same time. All of this seemed extremely unlikely in 1809 at the time of the dream. Benjamin Rush, in fact, only got to see the early part of the renewal as he passed away April 19, 1813, and Jefferson and Adams lived an additional 12 years. Here's what we can learn from this. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God used dreams multiple times throughout the Scriptures to guide His people, and God, on an occasional basis, forecasts things in advance to add further endorsement of what He intends to accomplish. What people are looking for today are leaders who know God and know His ways. The last letter Jefferson wrote to Adams was on March 23, 1826, requesting that Adams see his grandson, which Adams did. When you take a look at history with a magnifying glass, you can magnify the Lord and see. And this is what Dr. William Stoughton did in his memorial remarks on July 16, 1826. These providences are without parallel. These providences will excite and astonish future ages. These facts will be a key part of our nation's history. This is God speaking to us as a nation just as He did to the Hebrew nation. Our nation declares, "Great and marvelous are Thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are Thy ways, Thou King of saints. Who shall not fear Thee, O Lord, and glorify Thy name?" Indeed, as we reflect on these providences, they should have a profound impact on our lives and our view of God and history. This is Christian Civics Training. Thanks for listening.